Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey there, it's Michelle Norris. I'm host of a podcast called Your Mama's Kitchen. When I travel, I'm usually looking for a way to find a taste of home when I'm not at home. And one of the things I love to do when I am at home is entertain. And Airbnb allows me to do that. When I was in California recently, I rented a house that had a great kitchen. And when we were sitting around the table, we're all thinking, we're in someone else's house. Someone could be in all of our homes as well. If you have a home, but you're not always at home, you have an Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
Planning for your next trip? Elevate your travel style with Quince. Quince has all the jet-setting essentials you'll want for your next getaway, like European linen, premium luggage options, buttery soft Italian leather bags, and so much more. And it's all priced at 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Plus, Quince only works with factories that use safe and ethical manufacturing practices. Pack your bags with high-quality essentials you'll be wearing for vacations to come with Quince. Go to quince.com/trip for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly supported by Kildare County Council.
They are the people that we elect to do these things. How can they not come together? This is the situation we're in.
Mary Kay, I think our listeners are just going to love what we have in store for them today. I know I do.
Oh my goodness, this is going to be a treat. I really, really couldn't agree more. You know, and I was just thinking before we reveal our guest about the power of music. It's so incredibly able to uplift us, to bring us together and to transport us to another time and place. It's sort of, well, it is, isn't it, a universal language?
I think music is one of the great gifts in life, and it hits so many spots. It can lift you when you're down. It can stay with you when you're down too, you know, it can cruise with you in a way. I just think music is one of the most wonderful things. I have a deaf brother, and I always think that one of the greatest losses in his life is music, until one day I heard him and saw him responding to the beat and realising that some element of it now had got to him. And I was so thrilled and pleased. But to be able to offer music to people, to have the voice, to have the music, is it's a great gift.
Yeah, I think the way you described it as the music cruises with you is really, really nice. And today's guest is someone who has forged a profound connection with millions of listeners around the world, a troubadour, a storyteller, a beacon of hope and an inspiration in the world of music, and a lovely, lovely guy, isn't he?
Oh, you have no idea. I have some idea.
He's under the table now.
Yeah. Well, he's an icon in the world of music. I mean, he's a man whose songs have just resonated, embraced and hugged audiences for donkey's years. Troubadour, isn't he, in every way? He's just wonderful. What I love about him as a person is his warmth, his humour, and just great depth of sincerity. And I have cause to know that because he and I have actually studied together. I have even danced an old set with him up on Donegal. That gives you a clue now.
Yeah, well, it's our pleasure and honour and privilege to welcome none other than, drum roll, Daniel O'Donnell. Dan, you're so welcome to Allenwood. Have you been around these parts before?
No, not exactly here. I've been in Prosperous, and I've been in Cara playing whist. Yes,
good for the cards,
in the night, yes, but not in this area. And I'm delighted to be here, and it's lovely to be with you both and a part of this experience that we're going to have.
Well, you've no idea how delighted we are to have you here, Daniel. It's just a joy now. I know that, Donegal is associated with music, isn't it? It's a desperately musical county. We talked to Phil Coulter at one stage, and we know that wonderful expression about Derry. There was music there in the Derry air, but you could say it was in the Donegal air as well. Was it in your house all the time?
Yeah, I think as far back as you go, for me anyway, music was always there. I don't remember when I started to sing. But if you go back, as you mentioned, Phil, I think maybe his mother was from Donegal. There was a big one of the Donegal parents, a big Buncrana, I think. But we go back, I suppose, I go back in my mind to Brady Gallagher. Brady probably would be the first, we would say, and Margaret would say the same. She did summer seasons and all over the UK with Patrick O'Hagan at the time. Yes. And I was lucky to get to know her. The first concert tour that I did was way back in 1984. Peggy Jones was in Carousel, had the Carousel Club in Manchester, and she put on a concert at Christmas and Patrick's Day. And in 1984, Brendan Shine was headlining, and I got the chance to be on singing 3 or 4 songs. And Brady was on. And after the first night, Brady said to me, she says, I think, she says, you could do with a wee bit of rouge. She kind of talked to you, a lovely lilt in her voice. And so before we went on the next night, Brady came out, and I'm sure it was lipstick. I thought it was come out of a wee thing like lipstick. Well, I was like Coco the Clown going out. But we formed a great friendship that lasted right up. And there I always think that she was the one that paved the way. And when you talk about music in Donegal, there's so many. John Kerr, there's Moya Brennan, there's Enya, there's Clannad, there's Mairead Newini and Alton, and Mairead and Trini Gonal. That's only just to name a few. And then you go down to the younger ones that are singing now, and Margaret, of course. So there's just, music was so important.
And what about in your house? Was there music
there
in
was
your
all
home?
Well, Margaret, you see, was singing from I was
What's
a child.
What's the age difference between
10
you?
years.
So she was singing a good
So Margaret
while.
was singing.
Yeah.
Margaret is 60 years this year singing. And she's 73.
60 years singing.
60 years singing this year. So she was about 13 when the keynotes they were a local band. They came and asked my father was away, I think, in Scotland working, as he did all the time, working on different farms. And we used to go over to Scotland because my father had 2 brothers in Perth and 2 sisters and a brother in Edinburgh. And then we would go over on holidays. And when we would get on the bus, usually McGinley's bus, Anthony McGinley's bus, and take the boat over. And when we would be going up past Girvan, there's a gate, I can see it in my mind's eye. And my mother, every time we passed it, my mother would say, that's the farm that we worked on. And this big gate.
They collected spuds, they collected potatoes.
And
they dug potatoes.
Absolutely.
And they lived in tough enough conditions.
They called them bothies.
Bothies.
Yeah.
These were what were they, like barns?
Barns and probably old straw beds and
dormitories.
Just a sight. And then my mother and father lived up in Fore in the early part of their marriage. And John and Margaret was there. Now they weren't born there, but they were there for a period. And they met in the Shetland Islands at the fishing.
Your mother and father
My mother
did?
and father, they were at the gutting, I should say.
The
gutting.
Yeah, the gutting. But they're both Donegal.
They were both. My father was from Acres, Burton Port, and my mother came from OE Island.
Yeah.
Now, they were only 4 miles apart from the mainland, but I believe they never met, but they met in the Shetland Islands, and that's where the romance started.
And is Donegal kind of fit-to-foot through you? Is it kind of from those roots?
Absolutely.
Burton Port and the island, OE
absolutely.
Island.
Yeah. And I suppose more so with the island because my father's mother moved to Edinburgh. When her husband died, my grandfather died in 1946, which is way before anything I remember. And then she moved with her eldest daughter they lived in Edinburgh, and she went over there to live. She lived there from probably the late 50s until she died in 1969. And she was there when my father died. She wasn't in Ireland when my father died. He died in 68.
What age was he? Your
He
dad
was
very
49.
young. Oh,
you were very young.
And I was 6.5. And do you know, Kathleen, God rest her, wild to say, we can't believe Kathleen is dead.
This is your
but
sister.
my sister. But after my mother died, we were going in the room, you know, and we were going through different things, and this box that my mother had. And we came on a letter that my grandmother, my father's mother, wrote to my mother after my father died. And, you know, she said, "What happened, my poor boy?" And she had in it, "Well, do you think, will the wee fella remember him?" That was me.
Because you were so young when he
And it
died.
was
And what did happen to him? Was it a
heart attack, I suppose, at the time. He wasn't well leading up to it, and I have a very vague memory of it, you know, because Margaret and James up to Margaret, there was 4 of them. James was 10. It was a trauma that I didn't realise was a trauma. I can remember going up on my tippy toes to see in to the coffin. I can remember trying to look in, you know. But
how did your mother cope with 4 wee ones?
After he died, for the first while, I think she was, you know, very distraught. But then whatever kicked in, and she just came back to herself, and she was a strong woman.
But Daniel, you had a really close relation. I've heard you talk so much about the bond between you and your mother, Julia.
You see, we were together. When my father died, James was 10. And then when James was about maybe 14, he went to Dublin. We had my mother's cousin, we called him Uncle Willie. And Willie was a very, very well-known chef. He was the head chef in the Royal Marine. And then in the Kildare Street Club he was in. James was always cooking, and Granny, my mother's mother, lived with us. And she would be the taster.
Oh, lovely.
But James then, my mother and myself were away somewhere, and when we came back, James was gone to Dublin to be a chef.
To work at the age of 14.
To work with Willie. So I was on my own at home. John was driving Margaret. Kathleen was away working. She went to Edinburgh too to work in hotels and that. So I was on my own, so there were just the 2 of us at home for a number of years while I was at school. Yeah. So it was just us, the two of us.
Yeah.
And there, I suppose, is where the bond was formed.
But she was also great for encouraging you,
very
I imagine,
much so.
for the music.
Absolutely.
Did she sing herself?
She never sang, but she used to write.
Did she?
She
But
did.
she wrote songs?
She did. She wrote a song called My Lovely Island Home. She wrote a song when...
You recorded that?
I did. My mother, she wrote it as a poem. She used to write poems more than songs. But she would document things that happened. You know, like when the Evelyn Marie sank. That time, she wrote a poem about that. She was kind of one of them local people that was able to put her pen to use. And at the late 60s into the 70s, the people started leaving away because they had no electricity, no running water. Before that, there was no difference in the island, the mainland, other than the fact that you had to get the boat across.
Julia lived to a great age, so she must have been a part of your
She was a big part.
Career.
She was, and we were
very
blessed.
Proud.
We were blessed that she lived, both to see Margaret's, you know, do what she did, and I remember, you know, when somebody would say to her, "You must be very proud of them," and she would always put the 2 hands out like this. "I'm proud of them all."
All,
yeah.
She would go to see Margaret, and I would phone, and I'd say, "Was it a good night?" "Oh, the best night ever." And then if she was with us, maybe we would be in Derry, and she would go home with someone, and I would come in, and we'd always have this thing to put the head into the room.
Yes,
you know, that was the tradition. And I'd say, "Did you enjoy the night?" "Oh, it was the best night ever." So no matter what you did, it was the best. And you know, that transferred down to the grandchildren and even the great-grandchildren. She was blessed to see a number of great-grandchildren. And the eldest one, Sarah, would sing. And she was the same with her as she was with me. We used to go to over the Burton Port Festival, would have a singing competition. She would gear me up and the song would be picked that I would sing. And if somebody came in, I would stand in front of the fireplace and sing. We were blessed to see her live so long.
What age was your mum
She
when
was
she died?
almost 95. About 6 weeks before she died, she says, Kathleen, she says, I was thinking I would get a new set of teeth. She had false teeth. And Kathleen says, sure, the teeth you have are all right. What are you doing with new teeth? Well, she says, I was thinking I would get a new set to have them for my 95th birthday. And Kathleen says, sure, the teeth you have are fine. Well, she says, the way it is, she says, I'm entitled to 3 sets on my medical card. And I have only 2 got. She wanted to get just the way she thought. She died in Dunlow Hospital, and what a great care she got. I was born in Dunlow Hospital, but I went in and she said, I stopped knitting, and I thought, well, that's telling now. You know, she says, I just feel now that I can't. But she knitted right up. She sent gloves to Pope Francis, to the Queen.
She did.
And she sent 2 pairs to the Queen. And I said, Mommy, I says, why did you send 2 pairs? Well, she says, sure, I thought when she'd be washing one, you would think that was the only gloves. She sent them to President Obama. I don't know whether you got a pair or not. But she sent them to Neil Lennon, who was managing Celtic, and she watched the football every weekend. And her greatest thrill was one winter's day, Neil Lennon put up his hand and he had the gloves on.
Good man, Lee.
Good,
Yeah.
brilliant.
She could identify, well, that was...
If she was sending gloves to the Queen, Daniel, she must have been absolutely proud as punch when you got your MBE from
she was.
then
And
Prince
she came,
Charles.
she
Did
came, she was there. And we were, you know, my mother didn't hold back. And she absolutely loved Diana. Actually, when Diana died, I actually phoned my mother to almost sympathise with her, because I knew she was, I suppose, always annoyed, you know, that she thought she wasn't treated right, that Charles could have, you know, did better. And of course we knew Prince Charles was going to be presenting the MBE, and I said to my mother, no, I said, listen, Charles came round, she was sitting kind of a bit lower, and she looked up, she says, I wrote to your boys when their mother died.
Oh, she did.
And he says, well, that was very nice of you, ma'am. And that was all that was said. But while she had the floor, I held my breath. Do you know?
And also,
Well done.
it was a lovely tribute, as you say, because it was your UK audiences who had written. And you have such a bond between your audiences.
When we go out in England and you know, it's English people or
Yeah,
wherever.
absolutely.
And in America.
And in Scotland too.
And Scotland. And in the Midwest of America, I would have to look for, some nights I wouldn't find an Irish person at the show.
And do you find that the audiences are evolving over the years?
Yeah,
Daniel?
I suppose, you know, the audiences, obviously when I started out, everybody was older than, well, a lot of the people are older than me. Now, they're not all older than me, unfortunately. But that's the way it is, you know.
But you've got a young audience as
There
well.
is.
Yeah.
It's, I suppose when we started doing, you know, things with the B&B road trip and that gas ad that I did, we didn't do these things for that reason. It was just kind of something. I mean, you're doing this because it came to you.
Yes.
Yes.
We did that because it came to us. The B&B road trip, I suppose it showed a side of me that people who wouldn't
It was
fans
hilarious.
or
It was
whatever
brilliant.
wouldn't know
But the
about.
relationship between you and
Yes.
Magellan made it. It was so funny, so real, true.
Well, it's just the way we go on, I suppose. And, you know, sometimes you forget that the camera's there, unfortunately or fortunately, when you're doing the thing. And we have a good bit of fun ourselves. We were down in Kerry, and it was a bad day. It was one of the first days of filming. And we were out, and we were put this umbrella up and we were saying, I'm singing in the rain and hop. I said to Magella, what are the people at home going to think of this? They're going to think we're off our heads. But when we were in then to do the, you know, the way you do the voiceover thing of wee bits and pieces, Magella said, gosh, this is kind of funny. It's and then it went out, and I think it did give a different perspective of the way that I approach things.
Yeah.
The thing that did give a different perspective on both of you was when both of you decided to share Magella's illness.
Yes, that was...
That must have been, that was serious stuff now.
That was.
And then you've had Kieran, your manager's death since.
I suppose, and you'll probably understand this, it's very hard when you're out in the public to not be in the public.
Yes.
So like you can't just stop doing something and not... It's a bit like what happened with Kate in England recently. She wasn't allowed to retreat without speculation about this, that and the other. Yeah. So eventually you think, rather than have a whole plethora of explanations from people that don't know what they're talking about, you might as well say, this is what it is, and it's hopefully curable, you know, that there's going to be a good result, which there was, thank God, in Magella's case. I suppose it's a bit like what Charlie Bird did, God rest Charlie. Like Charlie could have probably retreated because he had gone from the public, but his acknowledgement of what he was going to go through and what he eventually went through made an incredible impression on the world. I did say to Charlie, I said, Charlie, I don't know why you would get this, but this is what you're doing is incredible. And Magella, I suppose, at the time, it wasn't to make a statement, it was just to explain why we weren't going to do certain things. And then, because of what she ended up doing, going and having the head shave on the Late Late Show, and you know that year, it probably was said at the time, the Daffodil Day was a very bad day weather-wise. And there were 700,000 down on what they would raise. And do you know that Magella's head shave eventually raised 700,000? And Turn then gave her the chance to, I suppose, talk about her struggle with depression, which is now, I suppose, there's more openness about it. People need to know that depression is not something that there should be any stigma about. If I have a bad heart, I'm going to take a tablet. If I have blood pressure, if I have something wrong with my bowel or whatever it is, I'm going to go and see about it. So it's no different.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly supported by Kildare County Council.
Hey folks, I'm Mark Maron from the WTF Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Kleenex Ultra Soft Tissues, your ally to help tackle your allergy symptoms this season. I love the change of seasons, but nobody loves pollen and all those other things floating in the air that make you sneeze during this nice weather. Kleenex Ultra Soft Tissues are hypoallergenic and allergist approved, so fight back against watery eyes and runny noses without worrying about irritating your skin. For this allergy season, grab Kleenex and face allergies head on.
Hey there, it's Michelle Norris. I'm host of a podcast called Your Mama's Kitchen. When I travel, I'm usually looking for a way to find a taste of home when I'm not at home. And one of the things I love to do when I am at home is entertain. And Airbnb allows me to do that. When I was in California recently, I rented a house that had a great kitchen. And when we were sitting around the table, we were all thinking, we're in someone else's house. Someone could be in all of our homes as well. If you have a home, but you're not always at home, you have an Airbnb. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
you and Magella have a great marriage, and wasn't it last year that you renewed your
We did,
vows
20
after 20 years? But it was
some would wait to 50, but we haven't the time.
Daniel, take us back to when you met in Tenerife, because it wasn't plain sailing, sure it wasn't.
No, I knew Tom and Marion, who were Magella's parents, before I met Magella, because they lived in Tenerife. They had a bar, and we used to go and see them, and I would visit them. And then one evening we were going to their bar and have something to eat. One of the fellas in the band, John Staunton, and his partner were out staying with me. So we were going to Tom and Marion's, and we went, and Magella was there, and that's when we met. We had met briefly before when I went to the other bar that they had, and she was at the bar, and I went in, and she said to me, no, Marion and Tom are not here. And I said, tell them I said hello. But that night then, because we were sitting, ended up sitting with them all and chatting. And I don't know, was it that night? But I said the next night we were going out, and did she want to join us? And she did. And we went on from there, and we got on well. And then...
Were you going out?
We were.
In inverted commas
going
then?
out, sort of, long distance, but we were in contact. I then thought, well, this is now going to take the next step. And then, obviously, Magella was married, and she had Siobhan and Michael. And I thought, God, there'll be wild difficulty in this. And I thought, well, maybe we should call a halt. Because obviously I'm Catholic and would look at things that way. And, and then after not long, I remember one instance being at Mamma Mia, and I went to see it in England. And this was one of the many situations where I would think, God, Magella'd love this. And at that point, I thought to myself, why am I...
Are you suffering loneliness?
And being righteous as you would appear. If God is putting this in front of me, then it's his plan. And that was the end of that.
What about your mummy?
My mother, she was able to cope with it.
She was.
She was. Now, I suppose, deep down, she would have, for a long time, she would have rathered I stayed the way I was, because she had the sole occupancy. You know what I mean? But I think eventually she was happy. I think she was happy that I wouldn't be on my own, when the time came that she was no longer there.
Were you not killed having presentable women put in front of you with a view to marrying you to them?
Listen, I loved what I did in Korea. And for a long time, my whole focus was career.
Was your career enough,
yes.
think, then?
Yes. And then, I didn't set out, I wasn't looking for anybody. I don't think Magella was looking for anybody, so to speak. And yet, you end up, situations bring you, and then it's here. And
your fears then about embracing Magella's children, they kind of disappeared as well.
Yes, they disappeared very early. I mean, I had no problem with them, and they obviously had no problem with me. I remember when the first time they came to Donegal, we were driving and we could see the house away in the distance. We were driving after being in the house. We were going out to Kincastle, and Michael was looking out the car window, and he says, Mum, he says, is that our house down there, Mum? Is that our house? And I was kind of smiling. I thought, imagine that he's comfortable, because they were only 11 and 9. And we'd never had any issue. I was one of those lucky stepfathers that, and I never ever tried to be their father, because their father's still alive, obviously. And it wasn't that I was going to take that spot, but I just enjoyed them, and we have a great relationship,
You have grandchildren now?
The grandchildren.
What's that like?
And they are just the life and soul of what we have.
How many of them are
3.
there? You have 3 now? Oh,
the wee girl, Olivia's 8, and Archie is 6. I always smile when I mention Archie, because Archie's always in trouble. And then Luke, the wee fella's 2. And they're really they're fantastic. And, yesterday I was in the trampoline at 62.
What were you thinking?
I know, and
you're lucky,
I'm down.
You're lucky
on
you're not phoning us from the A&E.
All 4s, and I'm the horse, and they're on my back.
And Daniel, you do have a pretty busy touring schedule. So do you miss them when you're away, or do you?
You do, but I mean, I suppose we're in a lucky generation, or in a lucky time, that we have these video phones.
Oh, yes,
and
that's true.
I think that's what sustained a lot of people through COVID. But when I think back to when people emigrated to America or Australia or even England,
I know that was it very often.
do you know,
they were never to be heard of.
they wouldn't see the grandchildren. But I mean, I make a point of seeing them as often as I can and doing things with them. And, you don't have to do anything with them really, as long as you're there.
Yeah.
And, when you get that hug, when you land and they don't know you're coming, sure, it's worth a fortune.
Yeah. Does it determine maybe your touring schedule?
It does,
are you
a bit.
kind of pulling back a tiny
Yes,
bit?
I do. I have. And, I intend to, do... It's not that I'm doing a lot. I am doing a lot less than I used to do, but I'm doing enough. And I love the time off. I love I love the balance between it. When you're out, it's busy. I'm off for the last month, and I've seen them 4 times, and I'll go back this week again and spend a few days with them. And it's great to be able to have the balance. I'm lucky that I can choose. Down through the years, I have been very fortunate in that I always had great people around me. I had always great bands, management, and I think one of the most important things in anybody's life, and especially career, is to realise what you're good at and realise what somebody else can do better for you, and let them do it. That is why I'm able to balance the work, and I call it work very loosely.
You still don't think it's work, really, do you? No, because you love it so much.
I remember one day I was doing a video, and I was upstairs. I was getting whatever I was going to wear on and just getting ready, and I walked down the stairs, and my thought was, when I was about to go down, I was thinking, God, isn't this easy peasy? This is what I do. And when I got to the bottom of the stairs, I don't know if it was the man that owned it, but he was something to do. And he met me and he says, it's tough going, isn't it? And all I could do was agree. But I had just thought the exact opposite.
That's a lovely disposition to
I
have.
know. And I have never, ever felt I've been tired physically, but never tired of it. The opportunity to meet people it's like fuel.
Do you get energy from it?
I certainly do.
As an entertainer, your name is legendary. And one of the things that I've always admired, that positivity, that optimism that you radiate, the love that you radiate. And one of the things that occurred to me was during the referendum on gay marriage, you could have stayed out of it, You could have said, I'm an entertainer, I don't get involved in politics, and yet you didn't. The care that you had for people that you had known all the way through your life, and people maybe whose lives that you had seen had been in a dark corner because of maybe depression or oppression, you spoke out,
well,
and that took a lot of courage in your industry and with your audiences.
Well, I was on Ray D'Arcy that day, and this young girl from home had contacted another friend of mine to ask me would I wear a button. This was the same day. So I went on to Ray D'Arcy and I was talking about whatever, and then Ray then said about the referendum. And I think he said, kind of give me the opportunity to not answer. And I just...
Which would have been the expectation.
Yeah, I just said, no, I'm going to vote for the referendum. And my answer, the reasoning behind it was that it was going to make absolutely no difference to my life, but it was going to make a huge difference to thousands of lives. So I came out that day, and like then it was all thing, and I just phoned Gavin and I said, God rest Diana is dead since, this girl. And I says, you can tell Diana now that I'm just one big button. You know,
it's a good way of describing it.
I said, I don't need to wear the button. That was my thinking on it, you know, just that it was a huge thing for so many and meant nothing, made no difference to those that it didn't affect. But if you can improve a life anywhere, to walk away from that it's an injustice, it's the wrong thing to do, and that's the reality. If Jesus was here today, he would have an iPad. He wouldn't be writing on stones. Do you know what I mean? So, like, we're 2,000 years later.
Yes.
So you have to balance it out for yourself and see what's the right thing. And for me, that was the right thing.
Daniel, we didn't talk about Strictly Come Dancing.
Oh, Lord. It'd be better to leave it alone. But
I met you at the airport on the way back.
Right,
do you remember?
That's right.
I never saw a man as happy in my life that he was going home.
I was saying to them, I will say to anybody that's listening, if they get called for Dancing with the Stars here in Ireland, it's an amazing experience. It's an experience like nothing else. And I wouldn't have missed it for the world. But I was absolutely terrified.
And he is you're a good dancer.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
You're a good dancer.
Yes, I was terrified as well.
Absolutely. I couldn't remember. You see, I have danced all my life and I could dance with the best, but I'm organic.
And the terror increases as the weeks go on.
I could be here today and I could be there tomorrow. But when you have to be here every time, when the beat says you have to be here, you know, I can't do that. So I would go down. I can remember at the top, in England, there was a stairs. You would be up at the stairs and they would announce your name, and then you had to walk down these steps to get to stand ready to dance. And when I would hear, and now to dance, whatever it was, Daniel O'Donnell and his partner, Christina Rianoff, I would start, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, please help me, God, please give me the strength. That was honest to God before the dance would start at all. I have to say that the night I was voted off, I thought it was fair good, but when I was in the dance off, I completely forgot everything. But it saved me because the next week was the Argentine tango.
Oh, I loved the Argentine tango.
Oh, Christ, Mary. That's all very well for you, but you know the way you have to throw the leg. I don't know what I mean. Good at that. I was like Usain Bolt. Never did anybody move as fast out of somewhere. And you know, we're still in touch, the group, and I'm sure your group as well. But like the group that I was with, I would almost never have touched base with them. In Ireland, our pool is smaller and you will meet people. But I never would have met the actors and actresses and different people. And honestly, you know, every so often we have the WhatsApp group and something will be put on and everybody's back writing again and in touch about, you know. So it was a lovely experience, but and I lost, I don't know how much weight. You know, and I was only on for 5 weeks. And like my back, I had pains where I never had pains. I'm sure you did too, but honest to God.
There's a story, I don't know, do you remember it, Daniel, when you were up on the Gaeltacht up in Edgescale one year? One evening, the Shanno singers, do you remember this night? The Shanno singers were coming in from all over, including from the islands. It was the worst night. It was freezing cold and it was wet. And the guy with the key of the hall had disappeared. And the hall was locked. And the only way in, we discovered, was through a tiny little slit of a window over the gentleman's toilet. And who volunteered to be hoisted up and over and in
aided
was
by
Daniel.
a former president.
Aided you. I had the privilege of holding your left leg while we hoisted you over, and about 20 women fought to have other parts of your anatomy we won't go into. We all laughed. We fell about laughing, and it's a wonder you didn't end up in the A&E, and we all didn't with the laughing. But what was interesting to me about that night was he was not going to let them down. He never said that. Mm-hmm. He never said it. But when it came to finding a way into that building, he was going to get in, and he got in, and he got the emergency doors opened, and we got in for the concert.
What a great night.
It was a brilliant night. Oh, sure, we had it.
Talking about it just Gail, that's a fantastic experience.
Isn't
if
it?
anybody has the opportunity. Brilliant, because of course the focus is on the Irish, but it's not solely on the Irish.
No, it's about people.
It's about people. And it's about
community.
It's about community.
Oh, it's brilliant.
And
we actually had to draw lots and sort of divide Daniel out among the women.
It was great.
The division was very carefully and scrupulously and jealously guarded. I mean, dare you dance 4 more steps than you were permitted?
Oh, dear God.
You're a great
I love the dancing. I love the set dancing. I love it. I've done it all the years, down through the years. And occasionally on the show, I would throw in a wee bit. We went all round Donegal to Killy's and further afield. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. You just couldn't put a price on it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I often think when I be dancing, and I don't get the chance now too much, but if we would go to, you're smiling the whole
time.
Laughing.
Yeah. You're smiling, you are.
Do you know, there's just, when you see people that are able to go out and good dancers, it's just magnificent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember dancing at home even, and even in Owe, when we would go in in the summertime, the school, was there, and we would have the radio. The sponsored programs would be on maybe till about 11 at night, and we would dance to the sponsored programs in the school because there was only one room and the desks would be pushed back. And then when that would be finished, Andy Ban was he at the post office, and he had an accordion, and that's me at I don't know what age. I was under 10.
Daniel, you used an expression there that just struck me. You were going in to the island.
Oh, aye. Yeah.
Going into Owe Island. That's very
going
Donegal.
into
You go into the island.
No, people would say, well, we go over. We went in.
You went in. That's so Donegal.
Yeah.
You went into the island.
Yeah. It's funny the expressions, that we have. And I was talking there just a couple of days, somebody asked me, did we do any Percy French? And I was going through Percy French and saying about how he was one of the greatest, cutting the corn in Creasla today, or the day. He wrote the songs and the diction that was used. Like we say, how are you doing the day? Instead of today. Mm-hmm. God rest Joe Collum used to drive me, and he was from Ballybofey. And I would come off some nights, Joe would say, your boss had no clue what you were talking about tonight. Because I would be saying something. After a while, when you get on the stage, you forget that you're on the stage sometimes. And if I was in a full flow, I might go back to talking, saying something Donegal. And I wouldn't even think about it. Mm-hmm. And then I would think, oh God, did I say that tonight or tonight, Yeah. But sure, that's the way we were brought up.
That night when you got in the window in Iddiscoil was a real sign of respect for the Sean-Nós singers, and also of fitness. And Daniel O'Donnell, you looked the picture of health. How do you maintain that fitness?
Well, I don't do very much, to tell you the truth. My mother was blessed, other than arthritis, which I have none of, thank God.
But would you be careful about your food?
Sure, I wouldn't overeat. And I'm not a big eater. Mm-hmm. Do you know, I am not a foodie. I don't care where I eat or what I eat, as long as it sustains me. Now, I have friends that we go away with sometimes, and we have breakfast, and they're talking about lunch. Where are we going to go? And then they're talking about the dinner. And I'm thinking, I couldn't give a fiddlers where we eat, as long as,
And you're not a drinker. Did you ever smoke? Did you ever
drink.
smoke?
No, I'm not a drinker.
No.
Now, a Bailey's coffee.
There you go.
That's it. And I don't take coffee, and I don't drink alcohol, but the two together. But I just never appealed to me. It's not that I have anything against it, and it's not that I didn't taste it. I did, but it just didn't. I don't. It's not something I need.
Daniel, there's a question that we ask all of our guests, and just wondering what your response would be. If there was something you could change, either about yourself or your life or generally, what would it be? Because it's Changing Times is our podcast.
Oh, do you know, I wouldn't change anything about how my life has been. All the things that have happened have, I suppose, enriched me, whether they're good things or not so good things. And everything happens for a reason. And I think it makes you stronger if it's something that tests you. I suppose, like the majority of people, I would just love to see, and we're blessed here in Ireland that we know peace. But when you see what's going on in Ukraine, and we see what's going on between Israel and Palestine, and we know the things that's going on that are overlooked in countries like the Sudan and places that they don't have anything to offer us. And that's a bigger tragedy than those places that there's conflict because there's oil or because there's some natural resource or something that the world needs that we focus on. And yet we let other countries that are in terrible turmoil fend for themselves. That's a greater injustice, I suppose. But I wish that somehow we could see a way that, and we shouldn't put it to the leaders of the world, but they are the people that we elect to do these things. How can they not come together? In 1950, and before it and after it, if you told people that voted for Fianna Fáil and for Fine Gael that they would be in joint leadership of Ireland, well, there would be, I don't know, probably some of them would have died with the shock. And yet, because this is the situation we're in, it's the best for the country at this time, and fair play to them for doing it. But why can't the world, why couldn't it be? If only, there's so many people that have power. And just going back to Charlie Bird, I said it at the top of Croagh-Patrick. The power that he had, that he channeled, that created such goodness, and yet there was people with the same kind of power in a different way and was channeled for evil. And it is evil.
And for hatred.
And hatred.
For hatred. Charlie channeled it for love.
For love. So you
Out
see,
of suffering.
You have a choice of what you do. And all these people have choices. And we need to move,
You're a star, Daniel. Thank you so much
thank
for
you very
coming
much, both
in.
of you.
Do you know the only thing that I really, really regret about our conversation is, remember you used to say that if anybody came into your house and your mother would just say, Daniel will sing.
Oh, Lord.
Would you just?
Well, maybe I'll sing a verse of the song that we talked about, my mother, in my island
Oh, I
home.
love that, Daniel.
Oh, please.
As I sit here sadly thinking how the years go swiftly past, my thoughts go back to my childhood days when I was but a lad, and we, a happy family, gathered round our turf fire bright, and the fairy tales our parents told on the cold, dark, wintry nights. My brothers 3 are married now, with families of their own. My sister lives in the USA, in her grand Long Island home. She pays a visit now and then to greet us one and all. Then our thoughts go back to those happy times in our home in Donegal. My island home, where I was born. Oh, how I miss those days long gone. The little burn where I would play. Oh, how I long for yesterday. If I could return, I'd never more roam, forever to stay in my old island home.
Oh my goodness. What a lovely tribute to Julia.
It was just she wrote down what she was thinking that day. And then she wrote, my island home is empty now, the clock hangs on the wall. The fireside chair, it still sits there. There's a padlock on the door. The raging seas and the wintry winds, and the seagulls wearily cry. But no fire burns bright on our hearth tonight, as it did in days gone by.
So that's it for another episode of Changing Times.
And our thanks to our terrific producer, Enda Grace.
And to our researcher, Anne-Marie Staunton.
Big thank you to Kildare County Council for all their support in sponsoring our podcast.
Remember to subscribe so that you'll be able to have access to all of the conversations on Changing Times. And if you like what you hear, well, make sure to give us a review. Wherever you get your podcast, it really does help us to grow our audiences.
So until next time, from beautiful Allenwood in the heart of County Kildare, bye for now.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly supported by Kildare County Council.
When you make decisions for your company, you look for the no-brainers. And if you have a lot of mailing to do, Stamps.com is the ultimate no-brainer. It streamlines your processes to make your business more efficient, which makes you less busy. Mail checks, invoices, legal documents, and everything you need to keep your business running with Stamps.com. Seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Schedule package pickups and see your cheapest and fastest shipping options from different carriers, with rates up to 89% off USPS and UPS rates. And with the Stamps.com mobile app, you can take care of mailing and shipping wherever you are. Make the same no-brainer decision as over 1 million other businesses with Stamps.com. Sign up with code PROGRAM for a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. That's Stamps.com. Code PROGRAM.
Pulling up to Mickey D's just for drinks? Oh yeah, that's me. Nothing extra, just perfection and a straw. Coming in hot for the coldest cups on the block. Because there are drinks. Then there are drinks from McDonald's.
Ever combine an ice-cold frozen Coke with piping hot fries? Try frozen drinks any size for $1.49. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
So, Robert, tell the people, what's a pretendian?
It's just what it sounds like, Angel. A pretend Indian.
Someone who fakes being one of us?
Someone who impersonates a native.
We're talking about real scammers and con artists.
There are pretendians teaching at universities, pretendians running governments, pretendians in Hollywood.
On our new podcast, Pretendians, we'll tell you the incredible story of these jaw-dropping frauds.
Who are they? Why do they do it? And how the heck do they keep getting away with it?
Listen to Pretendians on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.